Hello and welcome to my special episode about sock knitting. This is all going to be about socks, so if you're not interested in socks, skip this episode and maybe wait for the next normal one. I'm recording this in January, like very early January. It's like the 2nd of January today. I haven't gone back to work yet, so I'm still feeling quite rested and relaxed and not looking forward to going back. But I wanted to have a think about my knitting goal for last year and sort of share how that went, because it went a lot better than I thought it was going to. So I don't do New Year's resolutions. I mean, in theory it's kind of nice, but I find them stressful. Instead, I kind of set myself goals. In the past, that has been quite major goals, like not last year, the year before. How long have I been in this job? 2 years. About 2 years ago, my goal was get a job I actually like. So that's quite a big goal. I've had sometimes goals for saving certain amounts of money, goals for, I don't know, maybe pretty big purchases in my life. Yeah, but last year, sometimes I have making goals as well. Like one year I had learned to make trousers, which, I mean, I have made trousers. In fact, I'm wearing some of my handmade trousers at the moment. But I wouldn't say I've like really learned how to make trousers because none of them are particularly fitted. But yeah, that's a tangent. So last year, the end of 2020, I decided I was going to spend 2021 learning to knit socks. I love socks. I'm the kind of person who really likes getting socks for a present if they're good socks. I have always loved socks. I have a reputation for loving socks, and I thought I'd show you briefly my first pair of hand knitted socks I was given. They are very well worn. I did have these on the sock blocker, but this is my second time filming this episode and I've taken them off. These very baggy, worn, cotton, mismatched. I mean, these are 15 years old. I've worn these to death. I've mended them, my nan's mended them. It was my nan that made these for me, and yeah, this was my first pair. I darned the heels, she patched the toes maybe 5 years ago. Yeah, and I asked to have them odd. I used to, when I was a teenager, I had to think about wearing odd socks. I'm still not opposed to it now, to be honest, but yes, so I am a sock person. So learning, and I say that because I know some people will think, what's the point investing so much time in knitting something that you'll wear on your feet, no one will see, that you can buy really cheaply? Like, what's the point? I mean, it depends, you know, like, completely agree with all of that, 100%, but I love socks, so I really enjoy knitting them. I really enjoy wearing them. I quite enjoy looking at them, to be honest. So, and I get really excited when I see nice socks. So yes, socks bring me pleasure. But yes, so my goal was to learn to knit socks. So being that my birthday is at the start of the year, I asked for a few sock knitting related things for my birthday last year so I could hit the ground running with learning to knit socks. What I didn't really anticipate was that actually I'd find it much easier, and I think by the end of January I'd already made one pair of socks. So I was quite pleased about that, and I kind of just kept going. And this morning I got all the socks out that I made last year, which I'm looking at now, and that ended up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I started my 11th pair in December, but I've only just started those, so you might not get to really see that much of them. So 10 pairs in a year, that's not bad. I kind of had this mad idea that I wanted to do 12, but I got a bit tied up with other things. But I can say I comfortably did 10 pairs of socks. So definitely I could do 12 if I wanted to, but I'm not really into setting myself stressful goals. I also don't necessarily need another 12 pairs of hand-knitted socks. I mean, there's certainly 12 I'd like to make, but you know. Anyway, so I'm going to share a bit about the patterns, the needles, the yarn, how they've worn, etc. So I'm going to start, I think, with maybe with needle options, because I will be talking about different types of needles. So oh, sorry, I'm reaching something that's down here in my basket. Okay, so when knitting socks, you kind of have a few options open to you. I'm showing this just in case anybody who is watching this who's a knitter, who has never knit socks and really wants to, you know, maybe get some confidence to give it a go, because I really don't think it's that bad once you get into it. So for knitting socks, you have kind of 3 options for needles. Maybe four. You can use DPNs, which are needles with points on both ends. These are some Knit Pro 2mm DPNs. You can use magic loop, so that's some needle tips on a really long cord. I hate this method, I don't do it. I had to magic loop. These are too thick for socks really, but I was magic looping a sleeve the other day, absolutely hated it. I didn't really have much choice though. So that is, you end up with like a big loop of cord that you're not using. It's just a bit faffy, but yeah, worth looking up. The good thing about magic loop is that you don't need to buy as many needles, because for the method I prefer is tiny circulars. So this isn't my tiniest circular because I'm actually knitting flat at the moment, but you can see on here actually I've got the cord, circular cords that are really short with really small needles. So these are my bamboo Japanese circular needles, and it's a set with different cords and different thickness of tips. This is the thickest tip I have, because this is quite a thick sock I'm working on at the moment. And the points are, the needles 5 centimeters long, 2 inches. And these are by a company in Japan. They're called Kinki Ambari, but apparently that name was not marketable in the UK. So they go by the name of Sea Knit, as in sea knit, over here. And you can buy them in the UK. However, I found it really hard to find them, and so I actually bought mine on Etsy from Japan. And when I bought one fixed circular needle by them, I didn't pay import duties. When we ordered the whole set, I say we because my partner ordered it during COVID as a cheer me up present, when we were in lockdown, which is really sweet. He ordered me a set of the little bamboo ones, and I did get stung by customs, so I ended up paying for the customs and he paid for the needles. And they, you know, they're really small. Now I do really like these, but I will say the thinner you go, the more delicate they get. The smallest size, the 2mm ones, I did snap. So I did a few months later invest in, and this is what I probably would have gone with first had I known these existed. I got a set of 2mm Chiagoo interchangeables, and so they come with 2 cord lengths, and you can see these are both really short, and then 2 point lengths. So these are both 2mm, and these are the ones I use the most. They are 5 centimeters long, really tiny. So I think by the time you've got the shortest tips on the shortest cable, it's a 9-inch circular, and that's the method that I like the most. So I really recommend the Chiagoo interchangeables. The only thing is, for the heel flap, you will have to knit flat, even if you're using circular method, and the toe, you will get to a point where you also need to use something else, and that will be either magic loop, which you could, if you had a connector, you could connect the 2 cords. You'd probably need a third though, because that probably wouldn't be quite long enough, and you could magic loop with the same needles and cord. But actually that's why I have these DPNs for the flap and the toe. So I'll just put that away because they're very small. I don't want to lose any of it. And I keep my sock needles in like a vintage tin in this little zippy pouch with some other sock related bits in. But yeah, so this was the 11th sock I started, but maybe I'll talk about that at the end. So that's kind of your options for if you are looking at what sort of needles you could use. I mean, the other option would be a fixed circular, which I do have here. And actually a really nice one, which I quite like, and I think I do have one here. Yeah, is the Addi Sock Wonder. So I don't know if you can see, but let me try and show this a bit better. One tip is drastically shorter than the other, and this is to make it easier to like reach around, because as you can see that is quite tricky, like there's not much space to, and that's so that it's just a bit easier on your hands, not having two really short needles because they can cramp up. So that's another option. But I do have other small circulars. This is a fixed circular by the same company, the C Knit. These are quite nice because the tips spin. So like you don't really get into, I don't know, it's just quite comfortable. But these are 6mm, so I use these on sleeves, not socks, because that would be a very chunky sock. But that's kind of your options for needles. I mean, I prefer the small circulars because you don't get the laddering that you can get from Magic Loop. It's less faffy. I feel like you can pick up and put it down much easier. DPNs I find a little bit fiddly. I can now do it. It took me a while to kind of get my head around DPNs. But like they fall out really easily, and generally I find them a bit annoying and a bit intimidating to look at. So yeah, that was the needle options. When I started with those small bamboo ones, but once I realised they weren't very strong, I upgraded to that only the 2mm Chiagoo needles, and I do nearly all of my socks on 2mm. If I do need to use a bigger needle, I use my bamboo ones. I am thinking I might buy a few more of the Chiagoo needle tips. I did look up buying the whole set of the short tips, but it's like £80 for a couple of sizes, and it's about £20, or maybe even more, like 100, but it's £20 per set of 2 tips, like the set I just showed you. And actually I think it would be cheaper for me to buy the couple of sets I might use, rather than, like, I don't think I'd really benefit from buying their whole pre-made set already. But yes, so I had those needles, and then my mum lent me this book. So my mum lent knit socks a couple of years ago, and she's knit me quite a few pairs. I'm wearing one right now actually. This is a really lovely self-striping sock yarn. I think it's by Patons or Croy. I will put the link below if I can find it, if it's still available. But this book by Winwick Mum, Christine Perry, I think is her name, but she goes by the name Winwick Mum, called Super Socks, is really, really, really good, and I really recommend because it has lots of photos, and it shows you how to knit the same pair on DPNs, small circulars and magic loops. You don't need to do any of the translation yourself across the different forms. But I am pretty sure that you can get the entirety of this in the form of a tutorial on her blog or website for free. And it's the same pictures, it's the same information. But I'm not going to show you inside just in case, because I'm not really sure what's available for free and what's not. So this is fantastic. I pretty much exclusively used this to learn to knit rather than YouTube videos. I think I probably did use a YouTube video for like the Kitchener closure on the toe, but even the instructions in here are really, really good. There's lots and lots of photos. Sorry, I'm a bit uncomfortable. There's lots of photos. Yeah, so I really recommend that. It is a basic sock pattern of a 64 stitch circumference on the leg, but she does explain how you would size up or size that down. But it's a really good starting point, and to be honest, most of my socks are some kind of variation on this pattern. So let me show you. So my first pair I made, I bought myself 2 skeins of Coop Knits Socks Yeah, which is a 75% fine superwash merino, 25% nylon, 212 meters per 50 grams. It comes in 50 gram skeins, so it's like a slightly lighter fingering, and they recommend needles 2.25, and it's machine washable on a wool cycle at 30 degrees, and the colour I bought was Alamandine colour 117. It's like this burnt orange. So I bought 2 skeins on eBay for not very much money, because I didn't want to spend lots of money on socks that maybe would come out ugly, but I wanted it still to be a colour I liked, just in case they came out wearable. For me, 100 grams is quite a lot for a pair of socks, it turns out, so I have 2 of these left. So this was what was left from 150 gram skein, and then I've got another one of these as well. And the socks I made were these. So I used the basic tutorial and instructions from the book, but I added a 3x1 rib pattern on the leg and the top of the foot. So I actually ended up finding that quite easy, because you do the rib pattern between the stitch markers when you're doing the gusset, and then you've already got a pattern at that point established, so you just sort of carry it across. And that's because I wanted something a little bit more interesting than a plain orange sock. I thought it would be too plain. So it's a 1x1 rib at the top, and then 3x1 rib on the foot. I didn't do it on the bottom of the foot because I was worried about it being uncomfortable. Now these were 64 stitches, and I think on 2.5mm needles, which I used my bamboo ones for, and they're too big. So I have worn these quite a few times. You can probably see they are quite bobbly. They are quite worn, but not as worn as they could be because they're just a bit big. The ribbing does help. They'd probably be massive on me if they weren't ribbed. I do wonder if my partner could probably get them on, but I don't think the leg would be long enough for him. But I do wear them. I guess I'm not that happy with how bobbly it is. Like, it could be better. I don't know. So, not over the moon with the yarn. It's cheap. The colours are really nice. It is superwash. It has got plastic in it. I must admit, most of my socks probably are superwash with plastic in. Just because it is a lot of effort to knit a pair of socks to like put holes in them really quickly. So yeah, but that was the first pair. So I knit those really quickly. I probably redid it took me a long time to knit the first one, maybe 2 weeks to knit the first sock, which I thought was a long time, but actually probably isn't, especially when you're learning. If you can knit in the round, this bit is dead easy. It's just knitting in the round. The heel flap, again, is not that bad. It's quite straightforward. I got into a muddle about where my increases were going. Increases or decreases? Decreases. I got in a muddle about where my decreases were going and started putting them on the wrong side of the stitch marker. So I had to redo that bit on one of them. But my top tip would be, if you've never done this before and you are worried about getting confused, is put a lifeline in before you do the heel flap. Put a lifeline in after you've done the heel flap when you're picking up. And then if you do mess it up, you just rip it out and do it again, and it's not a big deal. You know, it's fine. And then it's a wedge toe, which you kitchener close. And again, if you're worried, put a lifeline in, and then you can rip it out and do it again. So yeah, that was my first pair. That was January. Now, in the December, actually before, I don't know whether this is worth sharing, but if you turn them inside out, it would be a 3 purl and then one knit. I actually do think that's quite a nice texture. So I am contemplating at some point knitting a pair, but then doing some of it inside out. No, knitting it in a way so that this became the right side. So I guess I'd knit the whole sock inside out apart from the heel flap, which then you'd have to, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but so that you're not doing lots of purling, you're actually doing, you know, mostly knitting like you would have done on the other side. But yeah, that's quite a nice texture. But so in December, before I started this sock knitting thing, I bought on sale 3 full skeins and 1 small skein of Amble by the Fibre Company, which because I really wanted to get into knitting socks, but I was really aware that sock knitting with all the superwash plastic reinforced yarn is maybe not the most eco-friendly. And like Emma of Woolly Mammoth had like mentioned about buying some of this, although to my knowledge she's not actually knit it up yet. I haven't seen them anyway in any of her podcasts. And so I found a shop in Suffolk that had a sale on, and it was like 20% off. So I bought, because it is quite expensive, I think it might be £25 a skein. And so I'm sure that my 3 skeins and my mini skeins came to 50 quid with whatever discount she was running. So I think it was quite a sizable discount. So that was my birthday present to myself. And it's 100 grams per skein, 325 meters, so maybe a sport weight, although it says fingering, but that's quite a lot thicker than perhaps the Coop Knits one. It is machine washable, and it says it's a conscious blend of washable merino wool, alpaca and recycled nylon. So the nylon is recycled, and the superwash treatment is an alternative to standard chlorine process washable wool. Doesn't really explain what it is. The alpaca fibres are processed with an eco-friendly anti-shrinkage easy wash treatment, so to make it more durable. Now, you know, I say this, but I didn't look into what that meant. I sort of just trusted them, which maybe isn't the best thing to do. But it feels really lovely. The colours are all really quite complex. This is the Buttermere, and I still have quite a lot of it left. I haven't worked through that stash yet. A friend of mine has knit mittens in these, which I think would be quite nice, because my mittens I've actually worn through really badly. So I think maybe having some stronger mittens maybe is a good thing. I ride my bike, so you know they get quite a lot of wear here. So you know, maybe I will, but equally I could just keep knitting socks and I'd be happy. So my second pair I made. Now I haven't gleaned any of these because I kind of wanted to showcase the wear as well. So the second pair I made were these. The light. It's gone a bit darker outside. See? Maybe it's better down here, a bit brighter here. And so the colours on here are Fair Hill, Buttermere, Catbells and Windermere. So they're all places, I think, in the Lake District. And Fair Hill, I really love the colour. It will look just grey on the screen, but it's actually a really complex blend of purples, greens, blues. It's a really complex grey. I absolutely love it. And so this is just, you know, really basic. Again, it's the pattern from the book. I think, however, I did my heel flap a bit shorter, and I used size 2mm needles on these. Probably still the bamboo ones at that point. I think I probably snapped them making this pair. It was probably during this that I bought my Chiagoo needles. And I've worn these a lot, so I don't know if you can see, they are quite bobbly. But I have also mended them twice, which I did the other day actually. So I did wear through the toe here, so I've reinforced that from the inside, and I also wore through the heel, but I also wore through the heel in the yellow part, and I reinforced that from the inside, which actually was quite easy because of all the slip stitches and the slip stitch heel flap. That was quite easy to do, and you can't see it from the outside, but it should felt in really nicely. Now the only thing about this yarn, and I'm wondering if you'll be able to see it on this pair or not, so I might have doubled it. Maybe you can see there. It sort of sheds fluff on the places where there's lots of wear. I mean, the heels have felted together, but like on the bottom of the foot, especially on the inside of the sock, fluff kind of collects, and I wonder if it's the alpaca sort of shedding off, and I'll explain why, because I have another pair where a similar thing is happening that's not this yarn, and so I have questions about that. But that was my second pair. My third pair was also Amble. Same colours. Oh, it's on there a bit twisted. And again, it's the same pattern. It's the Winwick Mum pattern, but I did jogless stripes where you carry the yarn. So there weren't loads of ends to weave. And so this is again Catbells, Fair Hill and Buttermere. A really short cuff because I got bored of knitting the cuff. I think really, in hindsight, this sock should be much longer. So I really like these, but they are a bit too short in height and length. And so consequently, I also went through the toe on these really quickly because they are a bit short. And because they're a bit short on the leg, I don't wear them that often. So it's kind of a shame. And these, I really like them because they remind me of when I was little. I had an American Girl doll, which might not mean anything to some of you, and I had one called Kirsten, and she grew up on, so they're like a collection of historically themed dolls from American history, because I am actually half American, and she came from the prairies, I believe, in, like, you know, the middle of America. She was Swedish and her family came over you know, on the immigration boats to America, and she had socks a lot like in these colours, and so it reminds me of that. So to me this is like a nostalgic childhood sort of thing, and so yeah, I call them my Kirsten socks. So that was my second pair. I'm going to see if these are doing the weird shedding thing on the inside. Yes, you can see it well, look. Can you see that? Probably just pick it off, look. This sort of like fluffiness happens, and then it just sort of, you know, you can just pull it off. And it's a bit like, I don't really know what's going on there. But so the jogless stripes, if that's interesting, with a jogless stripe in the last row of the colour you are using, you slip the last stitch. You don't knit the last stitch, you slip it. And then for jogless stripes, you carry the yarns like you would at the start of the row, and then you twist them at the start of each row so that you're carrying the colours up. And so also I think this is quite a nice like pearl pattern as well. That could be quite nice as a main outside as well, possibly. Obviously you'd have to carry the yarns on the wrong side, right side. the other side to the one you wanted to show. And this yarn, it's really, really soft. Like, it's really comfortable to wear. I do really like it. The other thing to say about the Amble yarn is, because of the alpaca, I do think it stretches out a little bit. So even, I think I made them definitely too small, and then they did grow a little bit because of the alpaca, but they're still a bit short. So I could rip the toe out and knit another couple of rows. I could cut the cuff off and knit a longer leg probably. But I'm not going to, because it just feels a bit faffy, and I'm going to try and enjoy them the way they are. Really, it'd be better. I've been wearing trousers a lot lately, which I didn't used to. I used to live in leggings with dresses and skirts. These would be better with leggings because then my ankle wouldn't get cold. So maybe I just need to go back to wearing more leggings. But now this is where the order might get a bit wrong and incorrect, but I'm pretty sure the next pair I made were with this really, really pretty skein of merino cashmere nylon by Laine, who is in Ireland. And I am one of those people that really likes variegated yarns in a skein, doesn't like it when it's knit up. So this was quite an indulgent purchase. I think this was £25 for a skein. And it does feel fabulous, and I do really like the colours. However, it's worn terribly. I am not sure if I would use this kind of blend on a sock again. Have, however, rather stupidly since bought a set of mini skeins. It's also merino cashmere nylon. I'm pretty sure it's the cashmere, light in the case of the Amble with the alpaca, that's causing the problem I don't like. So I probably won't use what's left to knit another pair of socks. I'll probably use it on a cowl or something like that, because it is soft and quite drapey, but I just think it wears really badly. I did really enjoy with this one, it has lots of pops of bright green and stuff, and I did really enjoy seeing those pop up in my knitting. But these, I think this was the fastest pair of socks I ever knit. I think I did the whole pair in 1 week. I went a bit crazy and just did the whole pair in 1 week. So I'm putting them on the blocker. They still feel lovely, and I still wear them a lot. They've worn badly, but I have worn them a lot. I have worn them out of the house in shoes. But you know, considering like how badly they look now, I do mostly wear them inside. So they came out in this kind of variegated pattern. Again, all of my socks really are too short. I need to get in the habit of knitting longer legs. This is definitely a resolution for this year, is knit a longer leg on a sock. Knit less socks, longer leg. And I did really like them when I knit them up. I thought, you know, I really enjoyed wearing them. I don't mind a bit of madness on my feet. Like, I would never have a jumper like this. But I do really like these socks. I think I did this around the time I was watching Piku Kymmelainen's podcast. I binged watched them whilst knitting these. And she does a lot of neutrals, variegated yarns, and I got really inspired by her, so I was really in a Piku Kymmelainen like mood when I did these. But these are shedding big time. Don't know how well you're going to be able to see, but I mean, there's like fluff, and it doesn't like come away like it does on the Amble ones. It just sort of like, yeah, maybe you can see here, sits on the surface. They look really scruffy in real life now. Like, that just looks a bit mangy. It's not great. So after this, I probably am going to like clean them. I've got a little comb and see what happens. But my thought is, and correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't that mean all the fine fibre, the expensive fibre that makes the yarn expensive, in this case the cashmere, is shedding off the sock? And by the time that stops, you'll just have a merino nylon sock and the cashmere will be gone. Because that must be what's coming off, because that doesn't happen to my non-cashmere or non-alpaca socks. So that annoys me a little bit. So the mini skeins I've bought with the same base, I will probably use as a cowl, possibly mittens. If I do make socks, I'll probably hold it double with something else. This doesn't work for me. So yeah, that was a learning curve. And again, this would have been... Oh, the other new thing about this pair, I realised I didn't like Kitchener Stitch very much. I didn't really like doing the wedge toe, and so I did a rounded toe on this one. And so you do a rounded toe and then you pull it closed like you would on the top of a hat. So there's no Kitchener Stitch. And I really enjoyed that method. And I think pretty much that's what I started doing from there on out. But yeah, so the next pair I made, I can't show you because I gifted them, and it was my first pair of Colorwork socks. So this is a pattern that I had my eye on since before I could knit. I knew that one day, being that I love socks, I would knit those. I'd knit those socks. So I knit them from John Arbon Exmoor sock, not these colours. I will stick a photo of the socks I made here, and the pattern was the row house sock pattern by Blue Peninsula. And I had a lot of problems getting them, doing the colour work and being able to get it over my foot. My mum's feet are about the same size as mine, so I knew if I couldn't get them on, she wouldn't be able to get them on. So I really enjoyed working with this yarn. It's not that expensive. It comes in 50-gram skeins. It's made in the UK. It is 60% Exmoor Blueface, 20% Corriedale, 10% Swartles and 10% nylon. It is super wash, but John Arbon are like a really good company, and it's quite rustic looking and feeling. It doesn't feel like super wash yarn. And I have quite a few of these left, and I think maybe not my next pair, but the pair after that, I'm definitely making myself a pair of Exmoor socks. Definitely. But this pattern, I mean, my problem was I wanted to stick to my 2mm needle like ratio. And then I went up to 2.5mm for the colour work, and that still wasn't enough to get it over the foot. She actually recommends you knit 2.5mm and go up to 2.75 or 3 for the colour work. So that's what I ended up doing. It's a shame because the colour work looked really beautiful on the smaller needles. It looked really neat and perfect, but you just couldn't get it on. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame really. And I knit those in the colours Hemel, which is the dark green, Mackerel Sky, which was the light blue, and the yellow was Drumble. And they're all words from the south of England, I think. Yeah, and so I gifted those to my mum, and she really likes them. She won't wear them out of the house though. She does wear them at home. She keeps sending me photos of her wearing them, so I know she's wearing them, which is good. But she does not wear them out of the house. So yes. And so after that, I did my other pair of gift knit socks, which also caused me a lot of problems. So I wanted to knit something for my boyfriend for his birthday last year, and so didn't really know what to do. Now my boyfriend's really into old English industrial stuff. Our house is full of old English industrial stuff, hence this lamp here. Our house is full of old stuff, full stop. You can probably see some of it in the background. And so one of those companies, which I think is a water company, is ICI. And so his friend showed me a picture of some vintage workwear socks from ICI, and they were kind of similar to this. They were like an orange marl with like a grey band, and then ICI knitted into them. Now these are a bit big on the sock blocker because obviously the sock blocker is for my size foot and this is my boyfriend's size foot. And so this is West Yorkshire Spinners in the colour Turmeric. I hate this colour. The yarn that was left I overdyed into a different colour. This is Lang Jowl in the colour Taupe, and this is Lang Jowl in the colour Charcoal. So I really like the Lang Jowl yarns. They are about £5.50 a skein. It's 50 grams, and you get a little let's see if I can get it out of one of them. You get a spool of reinforcement thread in each skein, which you use for the heels and toes. So I quite like that. It is quite plastic heavy because you've got the plastic of the spool, you've got the plastic in the yarn. Didn't really think about that till the other day, about all those spools you end up with that you have to throw away. Bit of a shame really. So I might stop buying it. I think I probably have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 skeins of it. So that's 6 spools I've thrown away. In the grand scheme of things, isn't that much, but maybe something to think about going forwards. But yeah, I mean, the West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarn is really lovely to work with. This feels really nice. It's really comfortable to wear apparently. It's worn pretty well. I mean, look at that. Looks not too dissimilar to when I did it. But the thing, so this was the standard sock pattern by Winwick Mum, but I did 72 stitches, and I did them on 2.5mm needles, just to make them a bit bigger. I wrote out a Colorwork chart so I could do this as stranded Colorwork so that you could have icy yarn both sides. Try as I might, I couldn't do it in a needle size or a gauge where it would go over his foot. So I ended up doing it in duplicate stitch. So this is actually embroidered on top, and that's why it's only on one side, because it took me quite a while. Yes, and they've also got the rounded toe, which is a bit pointy on these ones. And so yeah, that was those. He really likes them. He says they're quite comfortable. He won't wear them that often because he's worried about wearing them out. And I've kind of told him, well, that was the point, so do. I also don't mind darning them when he does wear through them. But there we go. Yeah, that was those. And then around the time I made those, I also made a pair out of the Lang Jowl sock yarn for myself. And I think these are one of my favourite pairs to wear. I might need some water actually. So this is all Lang Jowl sock yarn. This is the colour Baker's Twine. This is the colour Ochre. And there is a very thin band of taupe underneath the ochre. I'm not really sure why. Just kind of felt like doing it. And I really like wearing these. I used the reinforcement yarn on the toe and the heel. So it was a little bit painful on my hands knitting the heel. But you know, it's really worth it because they're wearing really well. The heels have felted a little bit, but I feel like these are going to last, you know, really well. Sorry to hit myself in the face with them. Not good. And yes, I really like these. I'm not going to talk about these too much because basic sock pattern. However, I think for these ones I did 64 stitches on 2mm needles rather than 60. So they are a little bit bigger. And I think I knitted them a little bit longer, and I knitted the leg a little bit longer, and that probably has something to do with why I wear them so much. So that was the next pair. I then knit these ones. Now these are probably the ones that took me the longest to knit because I got bored. And these are using some mini boulette from Loop London. by a company called Vilaine. So it's French. They do them in little tiny balls, 20 grams each, and I kind of got sucked into the names of the colours. So this was Slipping Fingers Through the Door. I don't like that name, but I do really like the colour. It's a complex purple. Can you see? Don't know. Tooth Mouse, Waiting for the Tooth Mouse is the grey, and then Skinny Dipping is the pink. I bought these online. I really like the purple and the grey. I don't really like the pink. So I have to admit I've not worn these, and you can probably tell because they look like they've just been blocked. But this was my first pair of toe-up socks. So I used Judy's Magic Cast On. I think I did a German short row heel. Part of the reason why I didn't enjoy knitting them was because I didn't use a pattern. So I was cobbling together various tutorials and guessing and trying to make the stitch counts work for what I was doing. Also, despite the fact that I was carrying yarns and doing jogless stripes, I still ended up with 1,000,001 ends to weave in. And I'm not that happy with the heels. It's quite gappy and holey. So yeah, just not. They're pretty enough. I might wear them at some point. Equally, I might keep them as a gift for someone at some stage. But I don't know who that would be. Because I'd be too small for my mum probably to get onto her foot. Like, they might be a bit tight. She also said she didn't really like them. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know who that'd be for. I might just wear them because if I can't think of anyone to give them to, I may as well just wear them. But yeah, so they feel really nice. I did really like working with the yarn. I thought I bought some more when I was at Loop London last time, but I bought the wrong base, so it's not Sock yarn. So that was a bit annoying. And so they don't really match, but I quite like that. So yeah, those, and then probably the ones I'm most proud of. And I have worn quite a lot, and maybe they're not wearing that well. Looking at them, I don't know. They are getting a bit bobbly already. I'll put it on the sock blocker. So these are the Magic. Ooh, I've put it on the sock blocker upside down. These are the Magic Toadstool Socks by Stone Knits. And I love them. And I think I might have started a bit of a thing. I think at least 5 people that I sort of chat to on Instagram are now also knitting them as well. So, you know, thoroughly recommend this pattern. So these are my mushroom socks. I absolutely love mushrooms. Yes, I love these. So the thing I like about this pattern is that you increase stitches before the colourwork, and even though that would be 3-stranded colourwork there, you can duplicate stitch the spots on, which I have. So I knit these in Lang Jowl, ochre and taupe, and then some random yarns for the mushrooms themselves. I used the reinforcement thread on the heel and toe in the taupe because I'd already used the ochre on these ones. So it's a bit mild on the heel and toe, actual toe here. I ran out of the taupe, so I had to use the ochre from here down on the foot. So they are a bit mismatched-y, but with my shoes it's actually quite effective because the shoes have a bit of a cutout, and that's about halfway through the cutout. And yes, I really, really like them. But I am almost definitely going to make another pair with John Arbon that are a bit more rustic, because I think this pattern would look absolutely stunning in a rustic yarn. Definitely. Definitely making another pair. So that's those. And then my last pair. My last finished pair. So this is nearly over. Actually, maybe I don't need to put these on the sock blocker because they're still fairly fresh from being blocked. My last pair my Christmas socks. So these are made from Stripy Cat's yarn in the colourway Nutcracker, and I absolutely love it. This is her superwash merino blend. She very kindly gifted it to me as a Christmas present, so thank you. And I absolutely adore the colours. I think this colour is absolutely stunning. That sort of goldy colour is fabulous. I think this is the first sock set, indie sock set I've ever had, I think. Yes? Yes. And I really, really enjoyed knitting with it. I knit them throughout December and finished them on Christmas Day. And so they were my Christmas socks. And so I used the DRK everyday sock, but omitted the rib pattern. And so they are toe up, and I did that because I wanted to use up all the yarn. However, I probably could have done a bit more of the contrast cuff because I still have some of that left. But it got to midday on Christmas Day and I just wanted to wear them. So I did cop out a little bit. But the whole idea was to use all the yarn. But I can use that for some colour work on another pair. And it's got a Fleagle heel, which I really enjoyed knitting. I don't think I like the fit. They fit fine, and one of them I've messed up because the heel is slightly wonky. But I don't think that heel will be very hard wearing because the slip stitch heel is quite reinforced, and I worry that I will wear through that quite quickly. However, these are my longest leg socks I've knit for myself, so knowing me, I will reach for them quite a lot and want to wear them quite a lot. So I might need to just accept that these will be a pair that get very heavily darned in their life. But yeah, that was the last pair I made. You did see at the start I started working on a really thick pair. But I'm not going to talk about that now. That's next year's knitting. This year's knitting. So yeah, you know, my goal was to learn to knit a pair of socks, and I knit 10 and a bit. So colourwork, ribbed, no cables, but to be honest I reckon I could. I just haven't because I feel like it's quite faffy knitting a cabled sock. But I think that's something I would quite like to do this year maybe. Have some more like one colour socks, but with textures and things maybe. I just want to think about my yarn choices for that because I don't want it to get lost in bobbliness and felting and getting like ugh. So if you have any good recommendations. I also have had the book 52 Weeks of Socks now for a year, and I've not knit any patterns from it at all. It's an absolutely gorgeous book and I really want to knit something from it. So that's also one of my goals for this year. But actually my next pair of socks I'm going to cast on soon are going to be a colourwork pair using the charcoal blend gel. It's going to have moons on it. Moon socks. I'm very excited to do those. I might cast them on tomorrow. But yes, my New Year socks. New Moon, New Year socks. Maybe. I did want to cast them on yesterday, but I ran out of time. To be honest, I felt pretty rotten yesterday. Not because it was a hangover, I just didn't feel very good. So I spent most of the evening in bed, not knitting. So that's it from me on my sock knitting overview. I don't know if that was interesting or helpful or not. Maybe that was quite boring. But I quite like to get everything out and having a look and reflecting on what I liked about certain pairs and what I didn't like about others, and realising what's good sock yarn and not, and what I would like to use more of in the future and what I need to not buy again. Yeah, I think that's quite interesting. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you are going to knit your first pair of socks soon. If you are, good luck. Let me know how it goes. And yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.